Nobody told Chen, she couldn't bring a dog. To be completely fair to the Interspecies Integration Committee, they had provided 47 pages of guidelines for human personnel assigned to Nursery Station Vela, dietary restrictions for 17 species, noise protocols, approved color palettes for learning environments, a very detailed section on the correct way to greet a hatchling Drexy without triggering its defensive molt. 47 pages. Not one of them mentioned dogs. Jamie had taken this as implicit permission. Rex was a 3-year-old border collie mix with one permanently upright ear, one permanently floppy ear, and an expression of such relentless optimism that strangers on Earth had frequently stopped Jamie on the street just to tell her he seemed like a really good boy. He was a really good boy. He was also, Jamie would shortly discover, classified under Galactic Registry Appendix 7 as a domesticated subpredator originating from a Category Apex death world, capable of pursuit speeds exceeding 40 kilometers per hour, jaw pressure sufficient to fracture midweight bone, and tracking sensory capability rated at a threat level of significant. Jamie did not know this yet. She stepped through the arrival gate of Nursery Station Vela with her regulation pack on her back, her research assignment folder under one arm, and Rex trotting cheerfully at her left heel on a bright orange lead. The nursery common room held 22 hatchlings from 9 different species. It was a warm, colorful space full of soft lighting and rounded furniture specifically designed to feel safe. Rex sneezed. It was a completely normal sneeze. Enthusiastic. A little wet. 22 hatchlings went absolutely silent. Then 19 of them bolted simultaneously in 19 different directions. 2 climbed the walls. 1 appeared to simply vanish. Rex wagged his tail and looked up at Jamie with pure, uncomplicated joy. Jamie looked around the suddenly chaotic common room, then down at Rex. "Buddy," she said slowly, "I may have miscalculated." The senior caretaker arrived in 45 seconds. Jamie knew this because she counted. It gave her something to do while Rex investigated a colorful educational display in the corner and 19 hatchlings variously pressed themselves against the ceiling, wedged behind furniture, or in one extraordinary case, inflated themselves to 3 times their normal size and turned completely translucent. Jamie had not known that last one was biologically possible. She was learning a great deal very quickly. The caretaker was a Veth, tall, pale blue, for arms, the specific expression of someone who had dedicated their career to creating safe environments and was currently watching one become unsafe, in real time. Its name badge read Supervisor Orin. It stopped in the doorway, assessed the room in one sweeping look, and fixed on Rex with the focused horror of someone identifying the source of a structural failure. "What?" Orin said carefully, "is that?" "This is Rex," Jamie said. "He's a border collie mix. He's very friendly." Rex chose this moment to shake himself vigorously from nose to tail, ears flapping. Somewhere behind the furniture, something whimpered. "It is a predator," Orin said. "He's domesticated. It has predatory dentition. He uses them for tennis balls mostly." Orin stared at her with 4 eyes that all expressed identical feelings. "You brought a death world subpredator into a room full of hatchlings." Jamie opened her mouth, closed it. The guidelines didn't say. The guidelines assumed basic species awareness. Orin stepped carefully into the room, keeping its distance from Rex with the practiced caution of someone respecting a loaded weapon. Hatchlings of 9 species are currently in acute threat response. One Mavari has achieved full transparency. That takes significant biological distress. Jamie looked at the spot where the transparent hatchling probably was. "I can see its outline," she offered. "That is not reassuring." Rex had found his tennis ball in Jamie's bag somehow, and now sat in the middle of the room, ball in mouth, tail sweeping the floor in wide, hopeful arcs, looking between Jamie and the hidden hatchlings with an expression of pure, democratic friendliness. He wanted everyone to play. He could not understand why nobody was playing. "Okay," Jamie said. "Okay, let me just..." She crouched down, took the ball gently from Rex's mouth, and stood up. "Watch. He's trained. He's safe. He just wants..." She threw the ball across the room. Rex launched after it like a bolt of enthusiastic lightning. The remaining 3 hatchlings who hadn't already hidden promptly did so. Orin closed all 4 of its eyes simultaneously. Rex brought the ball back. Of course he did. He always brought the ball back. That was the entire point of Rex as far as Rex was concerned. The throwing was merely a temporary inconvenience between the bringing backs. He dropped it at Jamie's feet, sat, and wagged with the patience of an animal that had infinite faith in the fundamental goodness of the fetch cycle. The common room was silent except for the sound of 19 hatchlings trying very hard to not exist. Orin stood with all 4 arms folded and the expression of someone composing a very long incident report in their head. "They think he's hunting," Jamie said. He ran at full speed across the room with his mouth open. Orin replied, "In 9 different hatchling cultures, that is the definition of hunting." Jamie looked at Rex. Rex looked at Jamie. She picked up the ball. "Okay," she said, more to herself than anyone. "Different approach." She sat cross-legged on the floor, brought Rex into her lap, all 23 kilograms of him, and began scratching behind his ears in the specific way that turned him from a border collie into a liquid. Rex's eyes went half-closed. His tail slowed to a gentle, rhythmic sweep. A low sound emerged from his chest. Orin stiffened. "It's growling. He's purring. Dogs don't purr." "Tell him that." The sound continued, warm and rumbly, and deeply content. Jamie kept scratching. Rex melted further. His chin dropped onto her knee with the weight of an animal that had fully committed to relaxation as a lifestyle. The room stayed quiet. Then something moved. Behind the large curved reading shelf on the left wall, a pair of eyes appeared. Small, bright copper, set in a tiny face covered in iridescent green scales. A Veth hatchling, the youngest in the room by Orin's records, who had been assigned the name Pip by the human researchers because its official designation took 40 seconds to pronounce. Pip was supposed to be behind the shelf. Pip was no longer fully behind the shelf. Pip was watching Rex with an expression that had shifted, just barely, just at the edges, from terror into something more complicated. Rex's ear twitched toward the movement. His tail's sweep accelerated by exactly 1 wag. He did not move. Jamie held her breath. Pip took 1 tiny step forward, then stopped, then looked at Jamie. Jamie kept her face completely neutral and continued scratching Rex's ears. "See?" her body language said. "Perfectly normal. Nothing to worry about." Pip stared at the slowly wagging tail. The tail wagged back. Pip stood at the edge of the reading shelf for 4 entire minutes. Jamie knew because she counted again. Counting had become her primary coping mechanism since arriving at Nursery Station Vela approximately 37 minutes ago. Rex knew something was happening. He always knew. Border collies operate on a frequency of awareness that most species would classify as supernatural, and Jamie classified as deeply inconvenient at 2 in the morning when he heard a leaf fall outside. Every instinct he possessed was tracking the small copper-eyed hatchling at the edge of the shelf. He stayed in Jamie's lap, anyway. Good boy. Pip took another step. Then another, moving with the specific careful energy of something very small, making a very large decision. Its iridescent green scales had shifted slightly. Less flat and defensive, more textured and curious, the color deepening toward teal at the edges. Jamie had read enough about Veth hatchlings to know that color shift meant one thing: active learning mode. Pip was studying Rex the way hatchlings study everything that doesn't immediately make sense to them. Systematically, thoroughly, with the pure, unfiltered scientific commitment of a creature that hasn't yet learned to pretend it isn't curious. Rex's tail continued its patient, rhythmic sweep. Pip stopped 2 meters away, sat down on the floor in a posture that almost mirrored Jamie's cross-legged position. Tiny legs folded, tiny hands flat on the floor in front, neck extended forward at maximum curiosity angle. It looked at Jamie, then at Rex, then at Jamie again. "His name is Rex," Jamie said quietly. Pip's copper eyes moved to Rex at the sound of his name. Rex's ears swiveled. His tail accelerated. Pip flinched back, half a step. Rex went still immediately. Ears down, tail low. reading the room with the accuracy of an animal that understood the grammar of fear, because his ancestors had spent 10,000 years learning to speak it in reverse. Pip stopped retreating, studied this new stillness, took one step forward. Rex's tail moved once. Carefully, Pip looked at the tail for a long time with the focused intensity of someone solving an equation. Then it did something that made Orin inhale sharply from the doorway. It reached out one tiny scaled hand and touched the tip of Rex's wagging tail. Rex closed his eyes in pure bliss. Pip snatched its hand back, looked at its own fingers, looked at the tail, looked at Jamie with an expression that translated perfectly across every species barrier without any technology whatsoever. What is this? Jamie smiled for the first time since arriving. Soft, she said simply. Pip reached out again. Soft. Pip said the word back. Or tried to. The Veth vocal range wasn't quite built for human consonants, so what came out was closer to SHHFT, but the meaning landed perfectly because Pip's entire face said it. The copper eyes went wide. The scales shifted fully to deep, curious teal. Both tiny hands were now buried in Rex's tail fur, with the committed enthusiasm of a hatchling who had found something extraordinary and intended to understand it completely. Rex had ascended to a higher plane of existence. Jamie watched Supervisor Orin from the corner of her eye. The four arms were still folded, but the expression had changed. Less incident report, more bewildered field observation. Behind various pieces of furniture, 19 pairs of eyes were watching. Jamie picked up the tennis ball. Pip's attention snapped to it immediately. Copper eyes tracking. Hands stilling in Rex's fur. This, Jamie said, holding it up slowly, is the whole point. She showed it to Pip. Let the hatchling look. Pip leaned forward and sniffed it with the tiny flat nostrils of a Veth, then pulled back with an expression of profound personal offense at the smell of well-used tennis ball. Jamie laughed. She couldn't help it. Pip looked at her laugh with scientific interest. Watch, Jamie said. She rolled the ball gently across the floor. Not a throw, not a chase trigger, just a slow, friendly roll that went 3 meters and stopped against a cushion. Rex looked at Jamie. Jamie nodded. Rex trotted after it calmly, picked it up with the delicacy of an animal that understood the assignment had changed, and came back. But instead of dropping it at Jamie's feet, he stopped in front of Pip and set it down. Pip stared at the ball, then at Rex. Rex's tail swept the floor in slow, patient arcs. Waiting, Pip picked up the ball with both tiny hands, turned it over, studied it, then looked at Jamie with an expression that needed no translation. Now what? Jamie, I'm throwing. Pip looked at the ball, looked at Rex, looked at the space across the room, and threw it. It went approximately 1 meter at a 45-degree angle toward the ceiling. Rex retrieved it anyway at full enthusiastic speed. From behind the large reading shelf, a second pair of eyes appeared, then a third, then 4 more. Rex brought the ball back to Pip, not to Jamie, to Pip. Jamie noticed this immediately and felt something warm move through her chest that she recognized from years of watching Rex operate in the world. He always knew. Border Collies always knew. 10,000 years of working alongside humans had built something into them that no training manual fully captured, the ability to read a room and find exactly who needed them most. Pip needed him most. The hatchling took the ball with both hands again, more confident this time. Less like handling an unknown object and more like handling a known one. The scales had gone fully deep teal, the richest learning color Jamie had seen from a Veth, and the copper eyes were bright and completely present. Pip threw the ball again. Better this time. Actual distance. A real throw. Rex exploded after it. 3 hatchlings behind the reading shelf flinched back. Then watched Rex bring it back. Then watched him drop it at Pip's feet and sit. Then watched his tail. Something moved. Not one hatchling this time. A small collective shift, the entire hidden audience leaning fractionally forward. The body language of 20 creatures making the same silent decision at the same moment. The transparent Mavari hatchling reappeared first, resolving gradually from invisible to faintly visible to fully present like a photograph developing, sitting 4 meters away with enormous black eyes fixed on Rex. Jamie had learned from Oren's files that Mavari hatchlings only became visible again when they assessed zero threat. It had assessed zero threat. Pip threw the ball a third time. This time a small furry hatchling Jamie hadn't seen before, round and rust-colored with 6 tiny legs, crept out from behind the furniture and sat beside Pip. Pip looked at it. The furry hatchling looked at the ball. Pip handed it over. The furry hatchling threw it with all 6 arms simultaneously. The ball went in 6 directions at once. Jamie had not known that was possible. Rex lost his mind completely with joy. He retrieved 3 of them. The split had been an illusion of velocity, one ball moving very fast, and came back to the group at the kind of speed that should by every right have triggered 19 panic responses. Nobody ran. 20 minutes ago, the same speed had emptied the room. Now, 12 hatchlings sat in a rough semicircle watching Rex drop the ball and wag and wait with the patience of an animal that had infinite faith that the next throw was always coming. Oren stood in the doorway and said nothing for a long time. Then very quietly to nobody in particular. It chose the smallest one first. Jamie looked up. He always does, she said simply. Oren studied Rex with an expression that had quietly stopped being horrified and become something else entirely. How? It said slowly, did your species create this? Jamie looked at Rex, ridiculous, joyful, covered in hatchlings who 30 minutes ago had been hiding on the ceiling, and felt the particular pride that every human feels when an outsider truly sees a dog for the first time. Very carefully, she said, over a very long time. By the end of the second hour, Rex was completely buried. Not metaphorically, literally buried. Somewhere underneath a pile of 12 hatchlings of 7 different species who had discovered simultaneously that the soft, warm creature would simply lie down and accept being climbed on as though this was a completely reasonable thing to happen to a border collie on a Tuesday. Rex's tail was still wagging. It was the only part of him still visible. Pip sat closest, pressed against Rex's side with both small hands buried in his fur, scales cycling slowly through every shade of teal Jamie had seen yet and several new ones. The Mavari hatchling had fully reappeared and was examining Rex's floppy ear with the focused attention of a scientist who had found a primary source. The 6-legged rust-colored one had fallen asleep against Rex's back. Jamie sat on the floor nearby with her recorder, documenting. Because someone had to. Supervisor Oren sat beside her. This was new. They hadn't spoken for 20 minutes. Oren had simply come and sat, folding all 4 arms into a more relaxed configuration, watching the pile of hatchlings with an expression that had traveled a very long distance from where it started this morning. In 30 years of nursery work, Oren said finally, I have never seen a Mavari hatchling voluntarily approach an unfamiliar organism within the same session. Rex has that effect, Jamie said. It is a predator, Oren said, but softer this time. More like a fact being revised than a warning being issued. He is, Jamie agreed, genuinely. His ancestors were wolves. Apex predators. Pack hunters. Capable of running prey to exhaustion across open ground. She watched Pip carefully tuck the tennis ball under Rex's chin like a gift. About 15,000 years ago, somewhere on Earth, a wolf came close to a human campfire instead of away from it. She paused. We don't know exactly why. Maybe it was curious. Maybe it was hungry. Maybe it was just tired of being alone. She looked at Oren. We didn't capture it. We didn't train it into submission. We just made space for it. Fed it. Let it choose. Oren was quiet, and it chose to stay, Oren said. Generation after generation, Jamie said, both of us changing, both of us becoming something neither species was before. She looked at Rex, completely invisible, under a pile of alien hatchlings, tails still going. That's what a dog is, not a tamed predator, not a controlled weapon. A pause, a 15,000-year-old friendship. Oren studied Rex for a long time. Pip had fallen asleep now, tiny hands still loosely holding Rex's fur. Scales settled into the deepest, warmest teal. The color Jamie now understood meant something close to safe. Your species, Oren said slowly, looked at a wolf, and saw a friend. We do that, Jamie said. Oren's 4 eyes moved to her face. You do it with everything, don't you? Jamie considered this. Thought about every HFY story she had ever heard. Every account of humans walking toward dangerous things with open hands. Every species in the galaxy that had learned to fear humanity, and every animal on Earth that had learned to trust it. We try, she said. Oren looked back at the pile. The rust-colored hatchling was snoring softly. The Mavari had fallen asleep, draped across Rex's nose. Pip's scales pulsed once in deep content teal and stilled. Rex's tail moved in one slow, final satisfied wag. And then it too went still. 22 hatchlings from 9 different species, sleeping peacefully on and around a border collie from Earth who had come to a space station with a tennis ball and the simple, uncomplicated belief that everyone everywhere wanted to play. He had not been wrong. Oren stood slowly, looked at Jamie. Tomorrow, it said carefully, you will need to teach me the correct way to throw the ball. Jamie looked up. Oren's expression was doing something complicated and new across 4 eyes. He brought it to the smallest one first. It said, I would like to know how to make him do that again. Jamie smiled. That one's easy, she said. You just have to let him decide.